Hello, and welcome to Trip the Beltway Fantastic. My name is Kelly Vlahos, and I am the editor-in-chief at Responsible Statecraft. And I'm just so happy that you're here with me today. Before we go any further, please, if you're watching on YouTube, our YouTube channel, hit subscribe and like. We need to beat the algorithm. We're trying to build an audience. And if you're on any of our audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, please give us some stars and some likes, and we'll get out there on Trip the Beltway Fantastic. I am so excited today to have my friend Ray McGovern on the show today. Ray McGovern is a former CIA officer. He was a CIA analyst from 1963 to 1990, and in the 1980s, he chaired the National Intelligence Estimates and participated in preparing the president's daily brief. He's now one of the most badass anti-war activists that I know, and I'm just so happy to have him here today. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And I'm just gonna like break some news with you this morning. I mean, it's been breaking all morning, but the president put out one of his Truth Social notices today. He's breaking his own news, and he says that he has tapped Bill Pulte, who leads the Federal Housing Finance Agency, to serve as acting director of national intelligence, replacing Tulsi Gabbard, who resigned a couple weeks ago, citing her husband's illness. She is out of the agency as of, or she was, or she is, sorry, as effective June 30th. Pulte, who has no prior experience in an intelligence role, will keep his existing titles as FHFA director and chairman of the mortgage groups Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I have to ask you, Ray, what do you think of this particular appointment? And maybe you could talk a little bit about Tulsi's resignation and what that just means writ large for the intelligence community in this Trump administration.
Well, Pulte is the ideal man for this job. After all, it's the CIA that's running roughshod over everyone else. And the notion that a national intelligence director could rein in people like John Ratcliffe and his merry men and women has always been ludicrous. So you get somebody in there who is absolutely, completely a novice at intelligence. That's exactly what you need. He's not going to make any waves. He's certainly not going to exert any influence. You know, under the law, the Director of National Intelligence has purview over all matters of intelligence in the intelligence community, to include a review function over covert action activities. My God, has that ever been exercised?
Mm.
I don't think so. And I guess maybe to put this all in context, let's remember that the Director of National Intelligence was set up only as a sort of a smoke screen to disguise the fact that the CIA and the rest of the intelligence community screwed up royally before 9/11.
That's right.
They knew what was going to come. Some people think they even reported what was going to come, but Cheney kept that away from everybody. In other words, they needed something to do. And I remember this completely. The 9/11 Commission issued their report. Beautiful report, well written, but a cover up, right? So I'm asked by the BBC into their blue room in Washington right after that afternoon. It's just published. So I turn quickly to the pages where I think something nugget would be there, and sure enough, it says Khalid Sheikh Mohammed explained that it wasn't because he suffered some indignity in North Carolina when he got his college degree. No, it was because of his hatred for U.S. policy regarding Israel. Oh, I said, wow, that's good. Then in comes former senator from the state of Washington, Horton, Slade Horton. And I said, Senator, what what's this business about a national intelligence director? You don't need that. Everybody says, oh, Brennan didn't have, not Brennan, but that the director of Central Intelligence didn't have enough authority. You know he has enough authority, so why are you building another superstructure? And
Right, right.
he says, yeah, I know. He says, but we have to do something. That's what we decided to do. So it's been a superstructure with no significance except a derogatory one, a fortunate one. So it doesn't matter who's in that position. Whatever CIA says or doesn't say, when they let Mossad take the advantage, uh, that's what really counts.
And we'll talk about that in a minute or two because I did want to raise that issue with you. But I want to talk first about this article that Responsible Statecraft had published on Friday and broke some news. They found a little measure tucked into the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, that would create the conditions for absolute escalation of integration between the US and the Israeli military. They would be co producing weapons, cyber technology, sharing licensing, building industrial facilities together in the United States. I mean, this really takes the partnership between the U.S. and Israel to another unprecedented level. But alongside that is the notion that they won't need that MOU anymore, where we give them the $3.8 billion outright every year. This sort of shifts everything into the shadows. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Ben Freeman, I guess, was the
Yes.
person who wrote that. It's a terrific article, but it points out something that could have escaped attention. I mean, never before have the two been joined so closely, that is, the U.S. and the Israeli forces. We knew before Iraq that Israel was taking the initiative here, persuading people like Douglas Feith and people like Dick Cheney to attack Iraq for Israel's purposes. And that was largely the motivation. Now, the same thing, of course, happened with respect to Iran on the 24th of February, and we have no lesser person than Marco Rubio admitting, yeah, Israel said they're going to attack, and we thought, well, maybe Iran would retaliate at us, and so we thought we'd go preemptively strike Iran too, so that our losses wouldn't be so Israel made us do it. And so yesterday we have reports that Trump is cursing and yeah, you got to stop this. Who you think you are? Well, that's true. Netanyahu thinks he's in the driver's seat, as he always has been, and he's been around for a long time. So, you know, I have a little historic context here. I joined the CIA when John Kennedy was president. He was murdered, and I know who was involved in it. One fellow's name was James Jesus Angleton,
Mhm.
and one of his accomplices was a guy who was my first boss. His name was Fred Janney. His son has written a book about it, Mary's Mosaic, about the cover up of the assassination. So, why do I mention that? Well, anything I wrote on Soviet foreign policy, which was my shtick, if it mentioned the word Israel, it had to go through James Jesus Angleton.
Wow.
When I was on active duty big time, 67, when Israel did that preemptive attack on Egypt and Syria, uh, in the 6 Day War and seized all that territory, there was, of course, the Liberty, USS Liberty, where 34 U.S. Navy personnel were killed, and Johnson covered it up. Okay, and you fast forward to well, 73 was the only time the Arabs had enough strength to challenge Israel. And so they did, and we looked pretty good for them until, of course, Kissinger and the others stepped in. But then Kissinger said to Kissinger said to Nixon, "Look, We have to prevent the Arabs from doing this. Let's offer Israel a mutual defense treaty. And they did. I know some people who broached this, okay? And the Israelis said, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" That's just really thanks, but no thanks. Why, why would anyone turn down a treaty? Well, number one, you have to have internationally agreed international boundaries to have a treaty. And number two, the Israelis are just much happier not having to ask for permission before they took after another country, but
Right.
after asking for forgiveness afterward. And the other one I just cite is that I've been around for a while, and during '75, when I was acting national intelligence officer for Western Europe, the Turks invaded Cyprus. And Kissinger went out of his gourd. You can't deprive the Turks of weapons. There's a big Greek lobby in Congress, of course, and they put an embargo on further weapons to Turkey because Turkey had violated U.S. law by starting a war like that. Okay, so I'm in the State Department with these really big mucky mucks representing Director Colby, and they say, "Oh, this is awful." And I said, "Well, there might be a silver lining here." What is that? Well, maybe the next time the Israelis decide to attack one of their neighbors, they'll think twice about it. We might, and they looked at me like I was from Mars.
Yeah, right.
It was the most remarkable, unanimous. What? Well, there you go. Okay, there you go. In the 80s, and of course you have Menachem Begin admitting that Egypt posed no threat to Israel before 1967 when they decided, that is, the Israelis decided. He admitted that publicly in Washington. So that's the nub here. In other words, those occupied territories in November after the Israeli preemptive attack, they were judged by the UN Security Council unanimously. The Israelis had to withdraw from the occupied territories. 1967, for God's sake. And that's where we are now. They're still occupying um, uh, the territories they seized there. And, it took a Chinese lawyer at Geneva to point out that international law not only blesses resistance by people who are occupied, but also armed resistance. Whoa! So it's legal? I don't bless what Hamas or Hezbollah is doing, but happens to be, as this Chinese lawyer said at Geneva at a UN meeting, completely legal occupied territories get this kind of treatment under international law.
Were you at all surprised? And I know the answer to this, but when the New York Times and other papers started reporting the sort of inside conversations that happened leading up to the the latest round of attacks on Iran, that Israel was pretty much in the room in terms of their influence, their persuasion, uh, it relative to the president for going to war, walking away from the bargaining table. A year ago, the Gray Zone had published a piece about Israel's Mossad using CIA Director John Radcliffe and U.S. Commander Michael Kurilla to influence Trump by giving them all this cooked intelligence and scaring the bejesus out of him to the point where he felt that the use of force was the only tool that of option in dealing with Iran. Are you surprised, out of all of the presidents that have been subject to this cooked intelligence for years now, that Trump actually acted upon it? Can you talk a little bit about their influence on the intelligence end with this particular president?
Yes, I can. I was really surprised that the New York Times ran that piece, indicating how Netanyahu, when he visited the White House, brought his, or didn't bring it, but behind him was a big screen with the head of Mossad saying, "Look, we got to do this. We can do this. It's going to be a real piece of cake or a cakewalk," as was said before Iraq. Well, what happened at that meeting? Ratcliffe was there. The others were all there. Did they say anything? No. When did they tell the Times's Maggie Haberman how how strongly they felt that no, this was not a good idea? The next day. They knew because they had been interviewed up the kazoo by Haberman, writing a book with somebody else, that they're going to come out smelling pretty good no matter what.
Right.
So they didn't object, and that's what happened. So these people are cowards, or else
Yep.
they're kind of imbeciles, because the king has no clothes, okay? And they're not willing to tell them that that the pretend king has no clothes. And that's a real problem because it persists to this day. Are they telling the truth? Every now and then you get a flash in the Post, or the New York Times, Washington Post, New York Times, that, oh, yeah, the analysts know which end is up and they're serving that up. But who regulates what gets to the president? The National Security Advisor. And who is that? Marco Rubio. Oh, I thought he was a secretary. Yeah, he's also the National Security Advisor. So what Trump knows or doesn't know, Rubio has a hold on that, and that's really part of the problem.
You know, I would be inclined to call them cowards too, but how intimidating is it to have the commander of CENTCOM, the CIA director, the president himself, Marco Rubio, they're all in the room. Plus, you have Netanyahu sort of flying around there. I think he did like 5 trips, to the United States, whether it be Mar-a-Lago or Washington D.C. Over the last year. How intimidating it is that when they come in, they say, "Well, we have this intelligence, and we are the most superior intelligence service in the world on the planet, and we're telling you they have a bomb or they're about to get one, and we gotta do this." I guess it might be a little difficult to say, well, actually, and it didn't sound like Tulsi Gabbard, who did have the intelligence that Iran wasn't getting a bomb, wasn't even invited in the room.
Well, Tulsi was pretty faithful right up until this year in saying, in repeating the National Intelligence Estimate of November uh, 2007, which said Iran had stopped working on a nuclear weapon at the end of 2003 and had not restarted work on a nuclear weapon as opposed to enrichment. uh, Unanimous, all 16 intelligence agencies at the time. Now, why do I mention that? That played a huge role in preventing an attack on Iran that Bush and Cheney deliberately chose as an option before they left that next year in 2008. I can prove that. I mean, Bush wrote in his memoir. That was an eye-popping memo. It was terrible because, quote, because how could I justify an attack, a U.S. attack on the nuclear facilities of a country that the intelligence community says has no active nuclear weapons program? Bummer. He admits it. Okay, so what I'm saying is that if you get courageous people, as we used to have in the intelligence community, they had to go to the State Department to get somebody to chair this estimate. The fellow's name is Tom Finger. We are all indebted to him for bringing his real specialists and overriding what the CIA was saying in previous years. So it can be done, and I've seen it done. Uh, and this was the most recent real exhibit of that. And when Tulsi wanted to keep her job just 2 months ago, she in a written statement said things like, "Well, the president is right in saying nuclear is obliterated." And then when the senators asked her, "Well, does that mean you have an immediate threat?" And she, oh no, only the president can decide that. Well, that wasn't good enough for Trump, so he canned her. I'll be interested to see if she follows the example of Joe Kent and tells the real story before she leaves or after she leaves. That would be the courageous thing to do in the tradition of guys like Tom Finger.
Yeah. And in the tradition of yourself as well.
Thanks.
Um, our friends at Dawn, which is the organization that Jamal Khashoggi had founded before he was murdered by the Saudis at that Turkish embassy several years ago, just came out with a new report about AIPAC's ties to the U.S. and Israeli governments. And they went through tens of thousands of sort of LinkedIn and other like online biographical information databases to sort of like kind of like find the connections between AIPAC and people who are working on Capitol Hill and working for the U.S. Government in any other way. And the report is called "The Faces of AIPAC." It just identified dozens of people who formerly were at AIPAC, but now working in official capacity. And I'm trying to like be narrow here in foreign policy. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit, because I know that AIPAC has become, is more controversial than ever because people are feeling more comfortable talking about their influence, particularly on Capitol Hill and in many Democratic races today. AIPAC is a dirty word. People who take money from AIPAC are being called out, they're being primaried. Can you talk a little bit about the influence operations by AIPAC on Capitol Hill and in our foreign policy national security establishment, and how that plays a role in bringing us to war and keeping us at war, particularly with Iran?
Well, let me start by quoting Joe Kent. When he decided that there was no imminent threat and that he had to resign, threat from Iran, he wrote a very brief thing to the president and he said, look, I resign. There is no imminent threat from Iran. The prime mover of this is Israel and its allies in the United States. Whoa! Now, that's a gutsy guy. And he's boiled it down to two sentences. Later, 2 weeks later, he said, look, the only way to stop this whole stuff is to stop giving arms to Israel. Hello? Well, nobody else says that. Now, God, AIPAC is so powerful. Look what happened to Massey, okay? Uh, Maybe the proof will be in the pudding with this NDAA,
Mhm.
the Authorization Act. Does it include meshing U.S. and Israeli troops in a way that has never happened before? Or are they going to get rid of that language or water it down? My God, I'll be surprised if they can get rid of that language. And that will prove once again that no matter how many nice noises some of these representatives and senators make, they're gonna want to be reelected, and it takes the blessing of AIPAC to do that. So that's a real sticky wicket, and I wish I could be more positive.
Yeah, so I got Dawn's report up, which I encourage everybody to take a look at. It's on their website, but it shows that 66 former AIPAC staffers currently work in the U.S. government, from Congress to the White House to various branches of the military. Nearly 24 current AIPAC staffers previously worked in government bodies, so that indicates the revolving door there. Then they talk of the 66 former AIPAC employees, 40 now work in Congress, including House Foreign Affairs Committee. And then they talk about the revolving door to Israel. So like 7 former AIPAC staffers currently work for the Israeli government institutions, and 6 current AIPAC staffers previously worked for Israel. So this is quite a revolving door, and we kind of get a picture, or at least, one that Joe Kent has painted for us, that it's going to be very difficult to sort of wrench away the war policy from this kind of influence. I'm hoping, like you, Ray, that there is some gumption in at least the House through Ro Khanna and Tom Massey in his remaining term to strip away some of these measures in the NDAA that would push the aid into the shadows, creating an unbelievable amount of integration that I don't think the American people, I know they don't want it. It's just a matter of whether or not those in Congress even care and end up promoting this anyway.
Yeah, the good news, Kelly, is that there's been a pronounced shift in, or sea change, if you will, in U.S. public opinion having to do with Israel. It's not a knee-jerk blessing anymore. Most Americans are sort of aware that Israel got us into this war against Iran, which is unwinnable by us. And that's the glimmer of hope. On the other side, you have extreme confidence, hubris, I would add, on the part of leaders like Ben Gvir, under whose watch people on that latest Sumud flotilla were tortured and some of them raped. Okay, what did he say 2 days ago? He said, "Look, if Trump wants to stop this war in Iran, forget about it. We will not allow it." Did you hear that? We
Yep,
will not allow it. Now, Lebanon, of course, they're attacking full force, and the Iranians, to their credit, uh, kind of say, "Well, look, Lebanon's part of this whole deal. They're the art of resistance. We won't sign on to anything unless Lebanon is included."
that's right.
And so, what do we get now? We get yesterday a statement from the Revolutionary Guard folks that says, "Look, all that is true, and besides, you got to stop Gaza, and we're gonna close the Ben al Mandab Straits there in the Red Sea." My God, the talks are at an end. The
Right.
ball is in Trump's court. The strait is still blocked for people that the Iranians don't want to go through the strait. So it's reached the denouement here, and no matter how much Trump curses at Netanyahu or is alleged to be cursing at Netanyahu, it's not going to make a whittle bit of difference unless the American people are informed to a degree they haven't been informed before. That's why I really commend your role here and what we're trying to do in veteran intelligence professionals for sanity,
Yeah.
spread some truth around.
Yeah, I love you guys. We are against a formidable force here because it's not just Netanyahu. We have a lot of paid shills. We know this because they also have reporting on responsible statecraft of the millions of dollars that Netanyahu's government has poured into media operations here to try to manage the message. And then you have people like Mike Pompeo, who's out there. And I want you to see, I believe this is cut three, Pompeo explaining to us what the history of Gaza really should be.
The next generation of young people won't remember October 7th in the same way. That's true in Israel and in America and broadly in the world. And we need to make sure two things. One, it's not that we don't forget. We need to make sure that the story is told properly so that when the history books write this, they don't write about the victims of Gaza, right? They can't. The history, and I should be a little more precise. There were victims in Gaza, right? It's true. There are civilian casualties in every war that's ever been fought, but the victims were the people of the nation state of Israel. That the aggressor was the Iranian regime in the proxy of Hamas, and we need to make sure that the history books reflect that, and that requires each of us every day to talk about it in real time with our children, with our grandchildren, about it in a way that is serious and thoughtful and complete and moral.
I mean, is Mike Pompeo actually, was he ever working for the American people? Like, what is he even representing there on that stage?
He's representing the arch Zionists. This is not a war in Gaza. This is genocide. This is forced starvation. My God, I never thought my country would be involved in supporting, enabling, arming this this episode of genocide. So he's a shrill for the Israelis and for the Israeli lobby. Maybe he wants to be made Secretary of State again. He's a real disaster.
Yeah.
And, I think, alumni of West Point, from which he graduated reportedly at the top of his class, should turn in their West Point rings at this point because he's a disgrace to the Army. He's a disgrace to the profession of foreign relations. And I just wish that people wouldn't give him a chance to have people applaud when they say
Right.
Gaza. Now, don't talk about the victims of Gaza. Well, we got to talk about the victims of Gaza, or else we're not the United States that I grew up in.
I really do put the onus on the mainstream media because Mike Pompeo is a consultant and he has his fingers in a lot of different gigs right now, including Ukraine.
Right.
So we don't know whenever he makes these appearances who he is, like you said, shilling for. And I think it's the onus of the media. I mean, I'm not going to put it on, the organization that he was speaking at just now, but I've seen him make a number of television appearances where he is promoting war here, he's promoting more, weapons there, and I just have a feeling either he is auditioning for another job in the Trump administration or he's representing one of his clients. And maybe one of those clients is Israel, since we do know that a lot of money is coming in to pay for messaging campaigns. So some of that might be going to our friends who we see on Fox News and MSNBC and all these other places. And these media platforms are just not disclosing, his full resume when this is happening.
Yeah, not my friends. Not your friends either anymore. So, yeah, I mean, I read that thing that's just up on responsible statecraft. It's a very clever way of funding these people to spread this message. Now, the Zionist message, of course, is what prevails in all our mass media. And so that's why really educated people who don't know where to look, who don't read responsible statecraft or what we veteran intelligence professionals for sanity put out, they just don't have a prayer to find out what's going on. Now, the military, industrial, and now Zionist complex, Eisenhower made that popular first. Okay, his farewell address. Look, beware of the growth of power, intended or not intended. Oh, give me a break. It was intended by the military-industrial complex. Now, what he also said was there's only one antidote to that, and that is a well-informed citizenry.
That's right.
Whoa. Well, we're a long way from that, but we're making progress.
Yes.
This podcast, the responsible. Well, there are a lot of things that Americans have access to, and I think that I dare say that has something to do with the shift in opinion on Israel and on Netanyahu. So my main concern at this point is that Netanyahu is in dire straits. He has one card that he could always play, and that is his nuclear capability. I just hope, against hope, that when he realizes that he has a choice between ending up in prison, fleeing to someplace that will take him, or using his nuclear weapons, that he'll choose more sensibly, and that Trump, to the degree he can, will put the brakes on Netanyahu, not just rhetorically calling him bad names, but in the sense that Joe Kent points out, for God's sake, don't give him any more weapons. We
Yeah.
didn't give any more weapons to the Turks when they invaded Cyprus. That was a good precedent, despite the way I was
Right.
chased out of the room. And so we just have to say, look, the Israelis have gone too far. When you have Ben Gvir saying, we won't allow an agreement with Iran, that's a bridge too far. Expose that. and get people around to understand what's going on. That's the hope that I see. And thanks for having me on your program.
Absolutely. I want to close out with a little video that we put together basically to highlight how important you are to us, Ray, when I say the American people, and trying to inform us and putting up that challenge and resistance to, the imperial city. Do we have that teed up, Chris?
Stop resisting. Stop resisting. It's on the record. Stop resisting.
And in many respects, you guys going into secret fighting.
Stop resisting.
I'm not resisting.
Yes, you are. Give me your arm. Give me your arm.
I'm lying on.
Give me your arm.
It's dislocated,
Give
man.
me your arm.
My left arm is.
Give me your arm.
My left arm is dislocated. Damn it!
Give me your
Don't you
arm.
understand?
Stop hurting him.
Don't you understand? My left arm is. Ah!
Stop fighting.
I'm not fighting. I'm on the ground. And if you let me get my glasses on, I can see what's happening.
You're hurting him.
You guys are hurting me.
Stop hurting him.
I'm immobilized. I'm immobilized. You're going to dislocate my shoulder again. And look, would you pick up my glasses before you step on them?
Why does this require five people?
We'll get you up first.
Finally, I just wanted to share this morning.
Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Answer a damn question.
I look forward to answering questions in a few minutes.
You know about Israel's nuclear weapons. Everybody from the ICJ. I was sitting here quietly, and now I'm being manhandled by 2 or 3 people. You pontificate about a free press. You pontificate about a free press. You are hurting me.
Please, sir, respect the process. Thank you.
Oh, respect the process. Respect this process. While everybody from Amnesty International. From Amnesty International to the ICJ saying that Israel's doing genocide and extermination, and you're telling me to respect the process. Criminal, why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague?
Israel is the reason for this war. America does not want to fight this war for Israel. Let's go. Come on, let's go. America does not want to send its sons and daughters to war for Israel. Your inability to name that shows your exemptness as leaders. This is wrong. And nobody wants to fight for Israel.
A reminder to all our
Commandant, please stand up as a Marine and stand up for America. No one wants to fight for Israel.
Cell phone service was cut off, TV satellite signals were jammed, and internet access was locked for nearly the entire population.
So this is America.
The government
This
did
is
not
America.
want the
Who are you?
people to communicate with each other, and it did not want the press to communicate with the public.
The voice you heard screaming was that of Ray McGovern as he was dragged away by security guards who left him bruised and bloody. He was then arrested. McGovern is a former Army intelligence officer and a 27-year veteran of the CIA. He was one of the CIA's daily briefers for President George H.W. Bush. He has since become a vocal critic of U.S. foreign policy.
I got a little. I say this a lot, but I did get chills on my arms. I got the goosebumps here because, I'm so proud to know you, first of all, but second of all, watching Brian McGinnis, the Marine that had been pulled out of that room, they needed like 12 guys to get him. Talk about conviction. Just like, I would not have the guts to do that, but it just makes me so sad that we put more energy in shutting down voices like yours and his, or at least trying to silence them at these hearings, and then we do it to actually debate the issues and hold our leaders accountable. It's like anything it takes to get Ray out of a room, and this poor Marine out of a room, and Sam Husseini out of a room.
Yeah, well, Kelly, Sam is to be utterly respected for doing that. He's done lots of stuff like that. He was just asking a question about Israeli nuclear weapons, for God's sake. Brian McGinnis, he served honorably in the Marine Corps, and then he found out he had been had, that war is a racket, and war is still a racket, as David Swanson's latest book says, okay? Now, with respect to me, that first one you showed, maybe that's one I'll focus on. Um, I was aware that the Senate Intelligence Committee was going to bless the nomination of a known torturer, the woman that opened the first torture camp in Thailand when the U.S. was rounding up these people, paying bounty for them, and torturing them. And it's documented. And the people knew that. The senators knew that, and they were going to approve them. So at a juncture where I thought I could intervene, I went up to the railing and I said, "You guys are really, you know that she was a torturer, you're going to go, so you're not even going to ask her if she was there?" And so then you saw what happened to me. Now, the key there is that there are other real justice people around. I kept myself completely separate from Code Pink as we went to that hearing. Okay, why? Well, they wrapped up Code Pink and wouldn't let him in.
Yeah.
I was dressed to the gills, right? I got in, okay? But the final thing is, there was one courageous Code Pinker who also slept, Ali McCracken, and she was the one, when they closed the door, she just knocked it all open, took that video, and that video speaks.
Thank God she did.
So, number one, if you're going to do this, do it. And number two, I was lucky. I didn't know Ali was going to do that, but make sure somebody's there to record it, because American people need to know this. Thanks for showing that. I didn't like to go through that either. With respect to Hillary Clinton, I just stood up, didn't say a word, and she was speaking about freedom of expressions being so necessary in Iran.
Right, in Iran. Well, that's why, I didn't mean to dredge up any bad memories for you, but I want to remind people what happened to you, because I think it was quite a shocker then, and it's a shocker today. And I'm just so grateful that there are people who are still willing to put themselves in bodily harm with Capitol Police and security guards at these events, just to get the truth out like you did. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you being on the show and giving me this much time.
Well, let me just add that, Kelly, that the proof is going to be in the pudding over the next couple of months. I am convinced that the reason Trump goes off and does these crazy things like attacking Iran, attacking the Pope, for God's sake, before the midterms, that he doesn't give a rat's patootie about the midterms, that he has other plans for the midterms, and that right now, between today and the midterms, is the crucible. We will be called, there are more of us than there are places in prisons or in encampments that are building by ICE. We have to be aware of this. We have to realize that the proof is right now. And what will Trump do? You think he'll just acquiesce in a big loss in the election? I don't think so. I am not persuaded that he will allow them to happen, or at least allow them to happen in a respectful, justice or truthful way. So just to like, and you may be called on to put your body on the line rather than sit around and watch things. So for fellow Americans, this is the time for winter soldiers. It's going to be summer, but we have to be winter soldiers anyway.
Well, thank you, Ray. I so much appreciate you and for coming on the show, and I hope you'll come back again.
Thank you very much. We'd love to.
Great. And thank you to all of our listeners and our viewers today. Please subscribe, give us a review. We really appreciate it. We want to build our audience, and we'll see you next time.